musical notes with strings. So I've created these 3 little demonstrators to explain how each process works. What do you see different, just right off the bat, between those 3 strings? What's the difference?
Like, there's longer?
Yes, a long, a medium, and a short. So that must make a difference. So what I'm going to do is pluck the long, the medium, and the short. Now I want you to think, what's going to happen to the musical note? Do you think it's going to get deeper, or is it going to get higher? So be thinking about that and be listening for it. What happened?
It went higher.
It went higher. And it's all because when the string is plucked, it vibrates. And so the sound waves or the vibration moves all the way from one end to the other, but it takes a certain amount of time for this long one to go all the way down and all the way back. By the time it's gotten halfway down, the short one's already got to the end, it's coming back. So over a period of, say, like 1 minute, this short string is going to go back and forth a lot more times than the long one, which means the frequency is higher, which means that the musical note that we hear is higher. So the shorter the string, the higher the note, because the string will go back and forth, the vibration really fast. So here we have 3 strings that are all the same length. But if you look really closely, not at the color or the texture, but look at this one and then look at this one, do you see a difference? There's something different.
That one looks thinner than that.
Exactly. So I got a thick, a medium, and a thin string. So now that's going to make a difference. So now be thinking about what you think might happen when I go from thick to thin. And what happened?
It went like,
Yeah, it went higher. And that's because a thin string has a lot less resistance. So it'll move really fast when you pluck it. But this thick, heavy string, it doesn't want to move. So it vibrates more slowly, everything else being equal. So the shorter the string, the higher the note. The thinner the string, the higher the note. Now here I have 1 string, but what can I do to this string?
oh, you can tighten it and
Yes,
loosen
and loosen it. So I'm going to tighten it. Now think about what's going to happen. And then you're going to have to tell me.
It goes higher.
Yes, so the tighter the string, the higher the note. So there's 3 different ways that you can make musical notes with string. The length of the string, the thickness of the string, and the tightness of the string. And if you look at this auto harp, we have all 3 examples. Remember we talked about the length of the string? So you start off with a long, it keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter, which means the note gets
higher.
higher. And also, just like we talked about the thickness, it starts off with thick, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, which means the note gets
Lower? No, higher.
higher, yes. And then, of course, the tightness, I've tightened every one to get those perfect notes that we know of as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So I've got all those different notes. I've got 36 strings, that's 36 different notes. You could play any melody you could think of. But in mountain music, a little bit later, we'll have a mountain band playing over here if you're still here in an hour. But their instruments usually only have from 3 to 6 strings. This instrument right here, a mountain dulcimer, only has 3 strings, so that means 3 musical notes. I cannot think of a single song that I can play all the way through the whole melody with only 3 notes. But we do it all the time. And we use one of these 3 ideas. Do you have any idea how we can make a whole lot of notes with just 3 strings though?
Maybe tightening it?
I could do that. So I could tighten it and make it higher, or I could loosen it and make it lower, but that's going to take me like 5 or 10 seconds every time I did it. Would you wait 5 or 10 seconds between every note? You get bored. It'd have to be a really slow song. It'd have to be a really slow waltz. What were you going to say?
If you hold it down in places, does that tighten it?
Okay, not enough to do anything. But you got on to the right idea though, because we talked about the length of the string.
Oh, the length, yeah.
So if you press down, then it's going to make, because it thinks that it's shorter.
Yes.
Because when I pluck this string, it vibrates from this piece of wood all the way to where it crosses here and back. But if I press down like this, yes, up and down. So when I press down, now the string makes contact here. It's like the rest of the string doesn't even exist anymore. So now it's only going to vibrate back and forth right here. So that's going to make the note higher and higher. So you got all those notes. And then you can do that with this string and this string. And now you've got all the notes that you want to make any melody that you can think of. So when you see people playing mountain music and they're plucking all those different strings, and they may only have 6 strings, maybe only 3, and they're having different thicknesses of strings, so that makes different notes.
You have to
But they're
memorize.
moving their hands
just
back
learn
and
all
forth,
that. Wow.
and that's what's doing most of the different notes. It's because you have so many on one string. Like that one string, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different notes just on this instrument, just on one string. And then if you got 2 more strings, then that just adds to it. So you've got all the notes that you need.
Wow.
And since you're here before the music starts, if you can't stay, I'll give you an idea of what a mountain tune sounds like.
Yeah, cool.
So that when you leave here, you can say, yes, I heard mountain music at the Blue Ridge Music Center. Now this is very much the same as this instrument. It's called a mountain dulcimer, but this is just a little bit fancier, and I made this one.
Wow.
Now the way that this is played is different for different people, but I play it the way that you would have played it if you had lived in the early 1600s in Northern Europe, where it was built originally, before it ever came to the United States. They play the melody on the first string, so I press down to get all those different notes. Remember how we did on this one?
Yeah.
Where we make do, re, mi, fa, so. So I press down on this one. These 2 strings, even though I could press down to get more notes, I don't. I just play the same 2 notes over and over and over. It's like a bagpipe. If you ever listen to a bagpipe, you hear the melody, but you hear that background droning noise. That's your droning noise. 2 pipes sending out the same notes over and over. But if I add my melody is just do, re, mi, fa, so. And if I add those 2 notes to it, and a mountain tune would go something like.
Wow.
Yay.
All I was
Beautiful.
doing, you get all that sound.
We're from Florida, so we have never
Never heard of that instrument.
It's really pretty.
Thank you, thank you. So it's called a mountain dulcimer. So that's a hard one to remember, dulcimer.
The question is, a hammer dulcimer considered a mountain instrument or not?
Not really.
Not
Now
really.
we do occasionally get one
Okay.
every now and then.
I like that one a lot. I just wondered
Yes.
if it was.
Yeah, and it shares the same name.
Yeah.
But other than that,
It's
it's
not
totally different.
totally different.
History is totally different. Where
Okay.
it came from was totally different. It's just they both had that sweet sound. Yeah. Okay, first to show you how it works. Now, if someone wants to just play the harmony, the chords, you know, like some people strum a guitar, they're just playing chords, they're not playing the melody. They're just going dun 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 dun. That's what you could do with this one. So easy because instead of trying to get your fingers in those right places, all you do is push a button.
Ah.
So if you push one of these buttons, and I can show you what's happening, is, do you see these felt pads in here?
Yeah.
See the little cutouts?
Yeah.
The cutout is the only string that you will hear when you press down. And you strum across all of them, but all the rest of the strings are all dampened or, you know, muted, so you can't hear them. And all the cutouts are different ones at different places to make different notes. So if I strum this one right now, it would sound something like.
Wow.
How it's used, it kind of is like a harp, but like,
It's sitting down, or actually,
Yeah.
when most people play it, they hold it up like this and play it.
oh yeah.
So you just simply play your chords, and now that means that someone else has to either be singing the song, or they have to be playing the melody with another instrument, which you could just strum along. Now you can actually play the melody with this instrument, but it's a little more complicated. But it's not as hard as most instruments. If someone sat down at the piano to play a melody, and they hit one key that's the wrong key, everyone knows they made a mistake. But with this one, as long as you're pushing the right button, if I needed to pluck string number 18, even if I plucked 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all you would hear is 18. So it's much more forgiving as long as you're pushing the right button, because remember, that felt pad will mute, will not let those other strings vibrate, so you only hear the one that has the little cutout.
Wow.
So I could play a melody, it would be something like this.
Wow, that was pretty.
Simply pushing the right button and picking a bot in the right place. And if I happen to actually pluck a string that also had a cutout, it would be okay because it's part of that chord, so it would still harmonize with your melody string. So very forgiving.
Very nice.